Yeah, feminists having better sex. I wanted to report this from a little bit of an article on Live Science entitled Feminists Have More Fun. This is from a study from a few years ago, but it says feminism boosts sexual satisfaction for both men and women, a new study suggests. Busting stereotypes that peg feminists as man-haters, a new study shows that having a feminist partner is linked with healthier, more romantic heterosexual relationships. The study, published online this week in the journal Sex Roles, relied on surveys of both college students and older adults, finding that women with egalitarian attitudes do find mates, and men do find them attractive. In fact, the results reveal that they are having a good time, perhaps maybe a better time than non-feminists. Among the findings were that college-aged women who reported having a feminist male partner also reported higher quality relationships that were more stable and than couples involving non-feminist male partners. College guys who were themselves feminists and had feminist partners reported more quality in their relationships. Older women who perceived their male partners as feminists reported greater relationship health and sexual satisfaction. Older men with a feminist partner said they had more stable relationships and greater sexual satisfaction. Overall, feminism and romance do go hand in hand. And while they aren't sure how feminism works to enhance health relationships, the researchers have some ideas that feminist men might be more supportive of their partner's ambitions than traditional men, and men with feminist partners might enjoy the extra breadwinner to share the economic burdens of maintaining the household. So some reactions to that. Slightly older study, but relevant to our topic.
Well, yeah, what you call it. I think that, like we had talked about before, a big thing with feminism was that whole thing of the sexual revolution, but not only that, about, for the first time, marriage not being obligatory. That's a big deal. After the second wave, but even like more of third wave, now there is not this obligatory sense of I have to get married, right? Now marriage is this, you know what, it's a choice. There are some people who have 3 kids who are not getting married right now, and they just have a civil partnership. This is a very interesting time to see, you know, and you have more feminists keeping their name, right? I plan to keep my name. So that kind of goes hand in hand with like the idea of like, you know what, this is more about partnership, about compatibility, not only personality wise, sexually. Because think about, like, remember, like, I don't know if you know this because you're from the Midwest, right?
Yep.
Do you remember those parents that were literally like, I'm going to stay together with them and I will divorce when when the kids are 18?
When the kids have left
when the kids are finally gone. Yeah. And thinking about 18 years, or like even longer than if they have more than one kid. It was so common because they just got married to get married. Because that was just seen as a next step of life.
That's what you did.
That's what you did, whether you like the sex or not. And man, like you want to talk about, you know, and we still have like problems and it's also monogamy, right? Now we're having people even say, well, I have a polyamorous relationship or I have an open relationship. Now there's contention of whether that works or not, but I have friends who are married who have an open relationship and they've been together like, you know, years and years and years. There are things that are starting to be introduced that are really sex positive, and feminism has had an influence on that. And I think that's part of the reason, like you said, this whole idea of like the choices. There are some people who are having the female be the worker or like, you know, one breadwinner and then the male staying home and taking care of the kids. And people still look down on men like that because it's seen as like housework being a female job or being the woman's job, right? Which can go into a whole new thing of like, but, you know, housework is important, right? There are people who get paid for housework. And if you don't clean the house, guess what? DCFS or like, you know, building code and government people are going to come and close that house down, right? But back to the point, I think that's feminism has had a huge influence on opening up about sexuality and partners actually having a choice rather than feeling obliged to get married.
Yeah, It's something that, you can stay with someone when things are good, and if things don't go well, you have an option to leave. And
Yeah.
there was a study, I haven't put it up on YouTube, but it is out there, and I have thought about covering it. It looked at women's suicide and men's suicide rates before and after no-fault divorce.
Mm.
And what they found was that when no-fault divorce laws were passed in a state, there was a reduction in female suicide.
Whoa.
Because women could get out instead of killing themselves. And there wasn't a similar reduction in men's suicide rates. So they did look at that in the study. And so, yeah, I mean, I know people decry divorce and the rise of the single parent family, but you're much better off being in a household with one parent who loves you and gives you their attention than in a household where it's one person is suicidal because they can't get out. That cannot be, a place where a child should be raised in any situation. Anywhere in the world. Anywhere.
Exactly. And there are still places where that's happening. But one of the things I think about, part of the reason with the temperance movement and why women were so against whiskey was because, was DCFS around? No. And if you didn't have family, but if you had an abusive husband, God knows what they like, drunk off whiskey, and then this is back and frontier days, right? And they come home and do like unspeakable things. You're not gonna have the police unless you're friends with the sheriff. You are the one who is to like hide from your husband, and that's why they went so much like against whiskey, because there was no DCFS, there was no protections for the women and children. What that was happening, and it was like sadly misguided, because there was like this was before. I know that there were like feminist thinking and suffragists, and like that was starting to bubble around there, because after the temperance movement, like women were like, wait, we have some political power, but
it was looking at a symptom, not the cause.
A symptom, not the.
Taking away alcohol wasn't going to change the poverty cycle that those people were trapped in, and the frustrations of the men, and the history of alcoholism in a family wasn't going to go away just because a law was passed.
Exactly. And so, because that was like before like even understanding this, like patriarchy theory and all that action. But what you would call it, I think that it's kind of an exciting time. It's sad that people get really mad about it, because like I think like the big thing of like, oh, she left me. Like I have heard so many tales of part of the reason I am anti-feminist is because I got my heart broken and she left me for this or that, or like, and I'm not trying to stereotype, because yes, love hurts, love scars, love wounds, love Mars, right? But I think that there is a fear of choice and thinking, wait, but I need a partner, How am I going to find a partner, right? Because it's hard to connect to other people, and it's hard to let go and get hurt, but that's a part of life. And now that's the world, and you just got to accept it, because one of the things I think about is, why would you want to stay in a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to stay in a relationship with you? But then that gets to the problem of people thinking, no, people used to get married and they stayed married and that was worthy and this and that. And it's like, but yeah, people were staying married to people who might have been abusive, who might have been treating their children horribly, who made them miserable, and now that's not happening. And like, there are people who don't have to be with somebody if they're not sexually satisfied, right? And talk about an insult, talk about this ego basher. And I think that that's another aspect of why there's a backlash against feminism. Sometimes I think about that.
Yeah, there's a nexus, I think, of men who, now, of course, not being a man, I don't know from any personal experience, but I have been watching documentaries and reading up on notions of aspects of masculinity that are toxic. One day, I could call that toxic masculinity, but then people get upset, so then I have to use 7 words.
Use 7.
The elements of masculinity which can be considered toxic to human interactions.
Oh, that was so good, Christy.
It's like George Carlin and going from shell shock to
stress
disorder. You just say it in a longer, softer way then they won't get so offended. But you do have boys who are in a social norm cycle where they're taught that the most important thing they can do is be strong and aloof and independent and self-sufficient and take care of others, while also being told that they have to prove that every day, that they have to go out and prove that they're a man. So that the entire notion of masculinity being built on constantly proving that you're worthy to be called a man, and therefore you're always lacking confidence. You're always on your back foot. You're always competing. It's not from a position of power, that masculine norm. It's about demonstrating your compliance with it. So it's always about putting that emphasis on you. And then if you have young men growing up with this notion of I have to prove myself all the time, and then to go out and meet a woman who doesn't need his money, who can take care of herself, who has a lot of choices with other men, then I can also see that exacerbating that sense of not lack of confidence, but insecurity, and feeling like there's nothing, that could really give, nothing there in the society that allows you to build a positive notion of who you are as a man is who you are. You do you. What you do is masculine if you do it because you're a man. Doesn't mean it's for everybody else, but for you. I don't see a lot of those positive sort of norms. It's a lot of the stoic hero. Even in modern things like Tony Stark, he might have daddy issues and he might have panic attacks, but he's still a manly man.
Yeah, one of the things tapping off that, like, if we're talking about the things that we see, the images in media, the idea of the guy always gets the girl at the end. The amount of time that storyline drives me crazy sometimes, because it implies, like, because this is how the stereotype goes, right? The main character is a guy, and he is kind of like a loner, but also quirky and fun, and he's just a nice guy. And then he gets this big task, and then he meets a girl, kind of funny, but doesn't really have that many lines, but she's kind of funny. And anyway, they keep going in situations. He saves her, and then at one point maybe she kind of saves him, or whatever. And they argue a little bit because they just can't stand each other, but they really have a secret attraction. And then at the end, they get together, right? Now,
she's a prize to be won.
She's, well, not only a prize to be won, but it goes on the thing, this weird trope of the people that argue and can't stand each other secretly as sexually attractive. And there's no way that you can just have a male friend that pisses you off. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or like a platonic male friend. It doesn't realistically work. I have so many male platonic friends who I just, it's weird. Like, and also gives the thing of, oh, she can't stand you and is yelling at you. She really likes you.
Yes, it is.
Which is so stupid. That's the stupidest thing. It's like, no, usually you like somebody and have good conversations if you're sexually attracted to them. I mean, it's just like, anyway. But then, at that end, like you said, a prize to be won, and then it works out in the end because he's a nice guy. It's almost the most common trope that you could see, and I don't understand how people don't see, like, don't you see how, not necessarily we're all copying exactly what the movies are saying, but we're influenced so much by the idea that there has to be pairing off. And it happens in female romantic comedies too, because female romantic comedies, but that focuses more on the, I'm just single and I'm a great girl, but I'm never going to be satisfied without that man in my life. And it has more of that, like, and we notice as the chick comedy, the romantic comedy. It's the chick comedy. And these tropes have this big pairing off idea. Now for women, it's saying this is your only key to happiness. And, you want a baby. Don't you want a baby? Sometimes it isn't about the baby, but, they're like, I want a family someday. And then with guys, it's, like you said, the prize. The, I just had to keep badgering her until I get her.
Yeah, or I did this great thing and now I get laid as a reward.
Mm-hmm. Or not even that necessarily a great thing, because sometimes he got her in the damn situation. Like, one movie I think about, and it was recently released. It's with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt, I believe. And spoilers, but I saw a review on it. And it's literally about this spaceship that takes like 120 years to get there, but like Chris Pratt's character wakes up and then he's all alone, like, and he realizes like, oh my God, in 60 years I'm going to be dead. So he comes across like Jennifer Lawrence's frozen pod body and is looking through her information and like, oh my God, she's awesome. She's great. And he wakes her up knowing that they're going to be the only two people on this spaceship for like 60 years.
He made that decision for her.
He made that decision, so they get romantically together, and then she finds out, and she's like, leave me alone, and it's a big space station, but then he keeps badgering her and like following her around the space station, and then they get together in the end. So it's literally that thing of, he put her in this situation.
Right.
He decided that, you know what, I need a partner. Literally, this movie is about like pairing up and badgering her till you get what you want, which is the relationship.
Yep, he wants the JJ. And I was thinking about that. You're mentioning this pairing up trope, and it was one of the things I immediately noticed about and liked about the American version of Sherlock Elementary, because they made Lucy Liu, Dr. Watson. And while I do object to the fact that they don't call her Dr. Watson, they call her Ms. Watson. She's a doctor. Just because she's not practicing, she still has her title. But does not happen in that show. And sorry, spoilers if you're starting it out, so skip the next 5 seconds. But they never have a romantic relationship. There's no spark between Watson and Holmes. It's a purely platonic relationship built on mutual respect and affection for the person they are. And one thing, at first it was just, like to notice it and see it and to appreciate it and notice how it actually frees the story up to do other things than what we're predicting. Nobody writes about, oh, did Holmes give Sherlock a look? Did Sherlock, did he look at her too long? No, that is off the table. The story is about who they are as people and what happens to them, not whether or not they're going to stick their bits in each other.
Exactly. And that was another thing with Firefly.
Yes.
And obviously, like, I love Joss Whedon. Oh my God, even though I can't pronounce his name correctly. But what he did in Firefly, and this is different from Buffy, because Buffy had that whole teen thing. It was still a good show, but it did do the pairing off drama thing, and that's part of the teen market. But Firefly was different because the captain. And oh God, what's her name? Oh my God, an Afro-Latina Black beautiful actress. She's married and she's in a great relationship, and there isn't any cheating. Oh my God, this or that. Oh yeah, Zoe.
Zoe's character. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, Zoe's character, and so Zoe is a badass. Zoe is powerful, and the captain respects that, right? She's a huge emotional leader, but it's also like there is this constant mutual respect. The captain knows that like she's her friend. They are veterans together. They fought together. They have a long history, and there wasn't any like sex or past romance or don't you understand, I'm married now, I can't get together with you. No, it was an awesome platonic relationship that I really appreciate for Firefly. It makes me really mad that show was canceled.
Yes.
Because you can tell that Joss thought about that, and also having like one of the just so many important female characters and characters of color.
Also, the idea too between Wash and Mal, when Wash is a bit frustrated that he, as the husband of Zoe, feels like he has to negotiate through her with him on things that they're going to decide. And so Zoe has to sort of explain, look, you're my husband, but he is my captain. We have a different relationship. We've been through things. I don't love him more than you, but I'm not going to compromise who I am to make you happy, because this other relationship is also very important to me. And so her having to be that role, and then the guys, of course, they work it out. But that it wasn't up to her to fix the problem. It was actually up to them to communicate.
Exactly. Well, and it was like hilarious. Sorry about all the spoilers, but yeah, Firefly was amazing. And it's so important that more shows do those things. Like, because it ends up, I love more platonic. Oh, sweetie. My boyfriend's coughing. Be quiet, boyfriend. No. But it needs to be so important, because that's the thing. If we want to talk about like male relationships, sometimes when you have those platonic male friends, you see aspects, it makes you realize, no, this is what respect feels like. This is what an awesome relationship feels like. Like when guys try to say, well, defend rape of like, or, you know, rape apology of like, well, guys are going to do that. Guys are just going to do that. I'm like, excuse me, in my life, I've had male friends who just somehow resisted sexually assaulting me and raping me.
Mm-hmm.
No, like, I'm not going to base them of that. Like, these are like, you know, I've had a crash at their house when I'm drunk and like, you know, stuff like that. And oh my God, they didn't rape me. Wow, they must be saints. No, it's, we're friends, and like, that is an awesome thing to have, because then you can talk about with somebody else like your life. It's an amazing thing, but you don't see that in media because it's just about like, obviously it's about drama, but sometimes it's more powerful just to be like, they're friends and they're arguing and they're dealing with it.
It's also straight out of patriarchy to call all men rapists, because
It
what
really
it's
is.
premised on is the idea that a woman is your property, and you therefore, once you get your prize, you have to protect it from other competitors, and other competitors will want what you have. It's their disposition. You have to. It starts from an assumption that women are your sexual property, and other men want that, and therefore you're saying, all men are going to do that, and therefore you're imputing the worst thing a man could do on all men before they've even been born. And
Exactly.
that is not something that comes out of feminism. That's something that comes out of patriarchy.
Well, yeah, and like, if we like, this is historical stuff. Look at the Roman armies. Roman armies would shame the other army, not only the women, but the men too. And they did that as, because rape was this expected, I am going to assert my power on you and treat you as a woman. That was a big aspect of what the Romans did. And it's sick and disgusting. Like, literally, rape is a torture technique
And
that
it's
has
still
been
still being
taught.
used today. I mean, we
And it's still being used today. Yeah, oh man, what the CIA did at training some of the paramilitary groups in Central America
I also
using,
think sorry,
oh,
go ahead and finish.
no, yeah, but I think that it ends up going to a disgusting, nasty place in our history that no one should be proud of. You shouldn't want to be like, oh yes, well that's just like men. Look at the Roman soldiers. It's like, yeah, the Romans did horrible, 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 horrible things. Why would you want to be like that? Why would you want to say, oh, it's okay? No.
That was
Sorry, that's it.
just it's okay. It was just a headline I saw, so I can't report on the full article, but I did see something which I thought was about a woman in Syria who committed suicide rather than risk being raped when Assad's forces took
I,
back Aleppo.
I saw that.
And this notion of using rape as a crime of war, as a crime against humanity, it again plays on patriarchal notions of women's purity and women's being property.
Yeah.
The goal here is that you have to see a woman as something that a man owns, or her husband owns, or her father, until he gives it to her husband. And if you violate her, then you screw up their whole line. You have to make the woman who is the victim become the putrefaction of the act, not the man who did it. She is the one who
Exactly.
carries the stigma of rape, not her rapist. And that comes again, that is not out of feminism. That's an attitude that can only exist if you have a patriarchal worldview. Because in feminism, a person who is raped, be it man, woman, trans person, whatever, that person is still a person. Rape is something that happened to them, and they were a victim, and they need help, and they need counseling and support, and they need to recover, and they need to move on with their lives. And
Yes.
that is about human dignity and egalitarianism and wanting everyone to, have as much equality as you can have. So again, yeah, this rape is a war crime really plays into those traditional patriarchal values.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, it's not like this stuff is out of nowhere. I mean, it's old. Like, you one of the things that gets me on this is like when people try to defend, as if, like we said, it's like they think it's this gut feeling that they just know, and it's like, if you go back thousands and thousands of years, these things are evident, and these, like you said, with shaming the woman, but like she becomes this, like, to get to the man, not even considering the woman. And part of that with, like, you know, impregnating them. And that's like this, like one of the saddest things that you think about. But that was part of the conquest of war of like, oh, breaking the patriarchal family line, and then her having the rapist baby. That was part of the tactic. And it's kind of disgusting and sick. Like, I remember, sorry, but I'm coughing.
It's okay.
But I remember reading about this, yet again, John Oliver, he did a really good segment on it, about there's still states where the father, if he's a rapist, can have visitation rights for the child.
That's insane.
And I think that there's been some work trying to be done on it, but it's not an issue that a lot of people have at the front of their minds, because they think, how could that possibly be? Right?
Well, clearly, feminists rule the world, because otherwise,
Yeah.
if we didn't, that stuff wouldn't get passed. It would just languish because nobody cares about it enough.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, one of the things I still think about is just, man, that's the thing. I just think it's so reductive to say that all men are capable of that, when it's like, this is a sociology problem. Oh my God. But it's a psychological problem too. It's really big. It's really historical, and it isn't just right off.
The other thing too with that is that people, what studies have shown, that it's not that, you know, all men are rapists, but there is a small segment of the population that are sexual predators, and those sexual predators commit a lot of crimes over the course of their lifetime. They victimize dozens, sometimes hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a criminal justice system committed to investigating and prosecuting sexual assault, those individuals, every time they're missed by the police, they can go on to victimize another person. So there was just to say, you know, when it comes to, you know, rape issues, part of the big problem with not taking rape seriously is the predatory nature of sexual offenders.
Exactly.
Getting them off the street so that they stop the cycle. It's
Exactly.
not to treat all men as rapists. That's not a solution. That's not efficient.
It's not a solution. And part of the whole like thing too, because I know there's going to be a kind of like, well, what about female predators? It's like, yes, there are female predators. Nobody's going to dismiss that. But I would also argue that the rape culture protects them as well. When you see the instances of female teachers raping and sexually assaulting young students, 14-year-old students, what do you see the usual reaction? Not, oh my God, he's so lucky, man. Oh yeah, because that's what it is. It's not a older person abusing a child to them, and that has to do with a patriarchal attitude that women don't want sex, and if they want sex, it's because it's this uncontrollable urge, like, you know what I'm saying, of like the Madonna and the whore. So obviously, it's just like whore being a whore. It's a very interesting thing to see with female predators, female pedophiles and rapists, and then the difference of treatment. But this all has to do with the screwed up ways we view gender and sexuality and what a sexual assault and predator, right? Because we understand assault more than we understand sexual assault, right? If people believe me when I was bullied, you know, my nose was broken, but when I say, yeah, my nose was broken because I was pushed on my face, the reaction is, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God. But say I was sexually assaulted, well, what were you wearing? I mean, why did you go there? I mean, are you sure that that's what it was?
Right.
You see that?
Yeah,
Once you throw that term sexual, oh my God, all the puritanical, stupid, contradictory views comes out there.
Well, I think we have talked about a lot of things to do with feminism and sex.
We did. Oh my God, girl. Good job. We did it.
Yes, this has been a wide-ranging and fascinating conversation that I think we're going to have to do in 2 parts. And you know, Natalie, I think that we've made reference a couple times in here to Rush V and his book, but what we might not have talked about was the video that inspired us to talk about that by ContraPoints. So as the beginning of the video, before I do the rest of the talk, I'm going to have you tell about the video from ContraPoints so that people who see the other stuff about hear the other stuff about Roosh, it actually makes sense. So can you talk a little bit about that? Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the ContraPoints video, it was on pickup artists and pickup artist culture, right? And part of the reason I was really glad I saw it for this chat was because it focused on not necessarily, like, on sexuality and also on the culture of pickup artists not necessarily enjoying sex, not necessarily liking sex, but more of just the conquest of the keeping the tally, of keeping the number, of like, you know, and it was just awesome the way that ContraPoints, you know, laid it out and talked about, you know, a reference to Don Juan, the opera. I love opera, I love Mozart, but whatchamacallit, because that has to do with the nadir, a cultural nadir of like just thinking about how awesome Don Juan and his bravado in the opera. But if you just looked at the story, Don Juan is like scary and like, oh my God, a pathological, you know, seducing as many women, young, like just sometimes like straight up raping them, and keeping a tally, right? More idea about the conquest, the enjoyment of the hunt, right? And when you're considering, when you're having sex with somebody as like a hunt or trying to get laid, and also ContraPoints said like bang. Every time the title of the book, bang, which is, oh my God, that's amazing. But yeah, it was really fascinating to see that breakdown, and Contra quoted the book too, which just seeing the breakdown, how little the talk about the act of sex versus the conquest. And that's like a big aspect of objectification and patriarchy of like the things we've been talking about. So yeah, definitely watch that video.
Excellent. Yeah, check that out.
Bang! I'm sorry.
Do it one more time for us.
Okay. Bang! Okay, it's done. I'm done. It's out. It's out. All right, but yeah, I gotta feed my dog.
This has been so much fun. I can't believe we've been going for like 2 hours.
I know. I'm just really glad we got to talk. Thank you so much for having me on. And listen to my boyfriend cough in the background.
That's all right. We're gonna have him on. We'll have you on again when he's not coughing, because you know I only have so many friends on YouTube, so I'm gonna have to cycle through you guys at least a couple times a year. So you're gonna come.
Oh, we cycle, yeah.
We're friendly that way.
All right. Well, I think ta-ta and goodbye, everybody, and thanks for watching.
Yeah. Do you want to hold on just afterwards? I'll wrap up with you off air once I give the outro.
Oh, you're outroing? Okay,
yeah,
outro.
Yeah, outro. Yeah, so anyway, go check out Natalie's channel. Again, links for her video and her channel will be in the description box below. She's got great content. Go sub her, give her some love. And until next time, everybody, I've been Christy. You've been awesome. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video, in which I suspect will be in 4 parts if we've gone for 2 hours. So thanks for your time and attention again, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.